Hello, world. Hello, lovely viewers. A very happy Raksha Bandhan to you and all your lovely families. Welcome to my chat show, Smile with Seema. How do you describe a strong woman? Well, she has so many friends, and it's such a pleasure to be around her. She is ambitious. She has a personality which revolves around her goals, and she is constantly improving on her situations. Captivating, delightful person. You cannot take your eyes off her. Confident. She believes in her own abilities and she knows her own value. Today, I'm so glad to invite a multifaceted personality who believes in leading life without a title. She is a social activist, fitness freak, an epicure, nature lover, speaker, certified skincare and wellness consultant, explorer, dreamer, last but not the least, a Kathak dancer. Wow! So may I have the pleasure to invite Miss Anita Arora to my
That
chat show, Smile with Seema.
wow, Seema,
How
that was such
are
a
you? How are you doing?
thank you so much, Seema. That was such a humbling welcome. Yeah,
My
and
pleasure, my pleasure.
thank
The
thank you
the
so much.
shows the show is all about my guests. It's not about me.
Thank you so much. That was super humbling and absolutely delighted to be here. Seriously, on your
Thank you
show,
so
Smile
much.
with Seema, right?
Yeah,
And with that, a big hello and namaste to all the viewers around the world. Who are watching our show. So really looking forward to our conversation today. Thank you very much for having me in the show.
yeah. Oh, it's indeed a pleasure. So, Anita, can you please share your experiences on being a social activist? To begin with.
Well, Seema, to be very honest,
Hmm.
I think activism has become quite a buzzword these days.
Hmm.
An overly rated phrase.
Right. Right.
If you really think, it's a broad term. On
Hmm.
one end, you see, big formal organizations,
Right.
involved in doing several kind of activities on a much larger scale.
Hmm.
But at the other side of the spectrum, you see, individuals trying to make a difference in their own
Hmm.
little way.
Right.
So I think I fall more on the latter part of the spectrum,
Okay.
wherever I see some kind of injustice happening,
Right.
the urge to do something
Right.
is what I'm inclined to.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, I do try and support and work with the
Right.
organization.
Okay.
For example, in recent COVID times.
Hmm.
But in case I'm not able to support physically,
Right.
I try and do a little bit of philanthropy, by
Right.
lending help, supporting them by money, lending money.
Right.
Now, the point here is, Seema, it's not about what amount are we giving. The point
Exactly.
here is whether that amount has been put to the right use.
Right.
That is, I think, is very important.
Hmm.
So that's
Absolutely.
it. And, I think so this is what it's just my second nature. It's like if you talk about social activists or social activism, never really
Right.
thought about the term,
Right.
but just to give it a word, but it's been always my second nature ever since I
Hmm.
remember from childhood. Or
Wow.
perhaps on a lighter note,
Right.
my date of birth is 2nd of October, so I think
Okay.
Gandhiji's is stars my
Absolutely.
step dropped a
What?
little bit on me.
Oh my God. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's
So
really
that's it.
wonderful.
Yeah, bit just doing a bit of what I
Yeah.
can
But
do. That's it. Yeah.
I mean, I think I feel any bit is a bit. It's a phenomenal. It's just the thought itself is so important. It goes a
It
lot
is.
behind that.
It
Wow,
is.
that's wonderful. So you are known for pushing your boundaries. Can you please tell our esteemed viewers something on this? How would you describe on that front?
Well, I think, people who know me and, who know me well, my friends, they would be
Right,
thrilled to hear
right.
this question being asked because
Mm,
what, if at all, they know me for one thing, that
right.
is for pushing the boundaries. They've seen me doing that all the time.
Wow.
So, to start with, what is pushing the boundaries?
Right,
Basically, what is pushing the boundaries? It's like, finding that line and crossing
mm,
it. It is
right,
about, overcoming your fears. It's about, expanding your horizons. So this is what
right,
is crossing the boundaries, pushing the
right,
boundaries.
right.
So, on that note, I like to, narrate a bizarre, anecdote which happened in my life. To some it may sound orthodox, but it happened with me and it's very close to my heart. So I like to share it with the viewers if you
Yeah,
permit.
sure, absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Please
So
go ahead.
Seema, it was a beautiful summer day back in Japan. And how it is in summers abroad, we get very little summers and we are always
Yes.
out for picnics.
Right.
So I was out on the road with my babies, and I had to, to cut the long story short, it was very dramatic. I was on the road. I had to go to a certain location, but my Navi was bent upon on taking me to another location. ना हुआ ये कि जहाँ पे मुझे जाना था, जब मैं वहां से सिर्फ 2 मिनट की दूरी पे थी, there was a flyover and there were pretty lot of turns which I could take. And now how it is, we are only dependent upon navis. We cannot ask anybody or
absolutely.
So वो जहाँ मुझे लेके जाना चाहता था, I just went there and I thought that's a destination. So it happened to be a 5-star hotel entrance, and I entered there, and this doorman comes running from the entrance and he says, and he was very robotic, like Japanese. He was focused on what he has to say rather than listening to what I have to say.
Right.
And he was like, why don't you come inside? We have a lovely office going on. There's a pool, buffet, enjoy, blah, blah, blah. And I was asking, where is this destination? I have to go here.
Okay.
He didn't answer me. And I said, no, I have to go somewhere. And I just drove away.
Right.
I drove away and my Navi again, took me round and round for 5 minutes. And again, I was back to the same destination.
Okay.
Now, एक चीज मैंने सीमा अगर बुक्स वगैरह पढ़ के सीखी है या लाइफ एक्सपीरियंसेस से सीखी है, ये है कि pardon me, that अगर भगवान आपके साथ कुछ कर रहा है, बार-बार एक जगह पे ले जा रहा है, there must be, I look up and always say, there must be something good in it. इसमें से कुछ अच्छा ही निकलेगा भगवान. So when I again went, the doorman again said the same thing to me. Why don't you come inside? I said, चलो फिर चलते हैं, खुश हो गया. And मैं ये आपको स्टोरी इसलिए बता रही हूँ. It is so close to my heart and it made a huge impact on my thinking and made me believe in miracles and all those little things make your belief so strong.
Right.
सिर्फ 10 मिनट के अंदर ये इंसिडेंस हुआ. I took my babies because they were getting cranky. I had a 4-month-old baby and my daughter was looking forward to a picnic. मैंने कहा चलो बच्चे थोड़ा पूल में खेल लेंगे. We'll have a nice lunch. अच्छा दिन बिताते हैं, चलेंगे. With that attitude, I entered. We straight away went to the pool. हमने सिर्फ बैग रखे. Suddenly, I saw a girl floating in the water. Now वो 4-5 साल की बच्ची होगी. She was floating in the water. अब मैंने उसकी तरफ जैसे ही देखा, अभी हमने बैग ही रखे थे. मैंने जैसे उसकी तरफ देखा, I felt something is not right. एक gut feeling होती है, एक intuition होती है, something is not right.
Right.
But यहाँ पे मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि there were so many reasons why to not cross the line. Number one, दिमाग में क्या आता है कि कितने सारे यहाँ पे लोग हैं मेरे से पहले, the action could have been taken अगर कुछ गलत है. Secondly, I'm a foreigner. I was only foreigner there. They were all Japanese. Yeah.
Japanese, yes.
Thirdly, I don't speak their language. What if they mock at me? What if I raise a false alarm? What if they're just parents? There were 3 people standing just near to her in the pool. And I thought, what if they're their parents? And, these things come to any human being, in their mind.
Yeah,
and that's why we stop. And that's pretty natural. And that's why, we stop. So ye socha, and suddenly, obviously, I shrugged myself again, looked at the girl, and I realized something is not right. So within seconds, I just got up. I looked for the lifeguard. I saw she was missing from the scene. I looked for the parents. They were not there. And I knew, I have to do something within seconds. Otherwise, so anyway, again, long story short, obviously I raised an alarm immediately. The girl was taken out within 5 minutes. How it is, the helicopter landed just few feet away from us. It was so dramatic, as if I'm watching a dream. My daughter was holding on to me as if you're going to fly away to the swimming pool. Imagine a helicopter flying just few feet away on the grounds of swimming pool. And the body was taken up. It so happened that वो लड़की डूब चुकी थी और उसकी body float करके भर के पानी से, it was floating in the water उल्टा. Now इसमें क्या होता है ना, Japanese babies, kids, they are very good, excellent swimmers. So ये doubt बहुत strong रहता है कि कहीं excellent swimmer ही तो नहीं है, पता नहीं आराम से सो रही है. My baby also is a dolphin. She started swimming at the age of 6 months जब वो छोटी थी. But एक gut feeling होती है जिसको ignore नहीं करना चाहिए. And I've always gone with my gut feelings.
Right.
When it comes to crossing the line. So anyway, so it all happened, and then जब ये सब हो गया, she was lifted up. जब हमने अपने सर उठाए, क्योंकि हेलीकॉप्टर लिफ्ट कर रहा था ऊपर, जब हमने अपने सर उठाए ऊपर और देखा कि she's been lifted up off to hospital, all I could tell the universe was, seriously, Seema, because सारे मेरे सामने, they were bowing down, going down in front of me. You know how Japanese culture is,
Right, yeah, they always bow.
They were not
Yeah.
ready to come up because
Right,
apologetic and you want to, so मैं सिर्फ ऊपर देख रही थी और I was so feeble at my knees, मैं इतनी अंदर से कांपी हुई थी, imagine. बाहर से, yes, I'm very strong, but it shakes you from inside when you see death so close. And I was like, thank you, universe, I got my answer. Why are you sending me here? I got my answer. I did my job. And, this is so true, Seema, I've just read it in the books, but that they experienced it, that God only gives responsibility to those who can shoulder them. And I looked at God and I said, thank you for giving me the responsibility. And obviously the rewards followed later, the hotels and everything. And the best part was the girl's life was saved. The family came to our house after a week. And, Seema, just seeing that girl playing in my house, and they came to celebrate her rebirth. Doctor ne bola tha 1 minute bhi upar niche ho jata, she would have gone. She turned blue completely. And they were celebrating her rebirth with us, and new life, and with such humble,
I know.
Face. You can imagine what was the scene in my house after a week.
Imagine.
And just by looking at the girl, I was like, what if I had not listened to the Navi or God? What if I had kept my attitude like, मैं क्यों जाऊं वहाँ पे पैसे खर्च के, yeah, why should I even bother to, yeah. So I think these kind of incidences, make you believe that yes, once you cross the line, is only you conquer your fears, you become more strong, and you want to do it more and more.
Yeah, very rightly said. I mean, I think it's quite thing, it happens to so many people, but sometimes they never realize, I mean, how important it is. Even like you just took a chance, like you just went into the hotel and whatever, followed the Navi.
True.
But sometimes you get these situations, but sometimes you don't take it that seriously. You say, I don't need to, I don't want to take that extra edge to do it. But then, yeah, I mean, that was really wonderful. I mean, highly creditable, on that front. That's very wonderful.
I mean, Seema, this is one of the stories I shared with you. Find you.
Yeah, so of course. I'm sure you have one too many. I think I have to hold more number of chat shows with you.
One whole chat show can go on that.
Right. You take I think a week's time maybe to complete all your stories, I guess.
Wow.
Okay. What drives you in doing these things, and what's the motivation behind it? I mean, what keeps you going, like at the time or maybe after that incident? What made that mindset change?
Yeah,
Some
I think
does that.
I think the simple fact that it's making a difference in my life, because I do that in my personal life as well, crossing the line, pushing the limits. The simple fact that it makes a huge difference and it can have a huge impact in someone's life or even in the society is, strong, or is enough for me to, keep doing this. So can't stop, won't stop. And as far as the motivating factor is concerned, definitely I like to say, my parents, I love my parents, it all comes down from them. It's like my father is a retired defense officer, he was in army, and my mom was in, equally commanding position. So on one side, I would see them commanding and leading, and on the other side, they were like, soft corners for social causes. They won't think twice, before standing up for a cause or anything. So I think it filters down from them. My mother, like, if I like to say here, line for her, she's no more, is like, she was such a fearless lady, you throw any challenge at her. I've always seen her coming out of it fearlessly, she'll grow through it. She would just pick up a snake or a lizard or at the drop of her hat, and she would say, "Kyun dar rahe ho? Kyun cheek rahe ho? Saap hi to hai." I'm talking about that fearless.
That fearless.
So I think, so I think obviously my parents, my husband, he's always pushing the boundary within his, career. So always is quite inspiring. It's very, very inspiring. And second is, obviously there are a lot of factors, but main is the books. Books have been my companion. Ever since I was 18, I was very fortunate to have been, into a book club where, worldwide books, motivational, self-talk, and all these successful people talking to you. They have been my companions because very early in life I moved abroad. So, they have been my best critics. Thappad
That's
marte the खींच के कि you are like this, and I would look here and there. किसी ने देखा तो नहीं? I think, obviously books are your best critics.
Okay, right.
They look at it and you, it's like, you're doing it wrong. You're not right. And like, किसी ने देखा तो नहीं? अच्छा, मैं ठीक है. Okay, I'll try. This is how you're correcting yourself.
Yes,
This is you're
absolutely.
evolving. So they've
Yes,
been my great motivating factor when
your
they say
strong
that
pillars. Your strong
that
pillars.
yes, you are on the right path. Keep crossing the boundaries and keep doing it. And we've gone before you, so you are right. Yeah, like something.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yes, right. Very, very nice. Very, very inspiring indeed. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
So tell us about your time. I guess you were in Japan living for a very, very long time. So again, you can just share your experience with us. How was your stay in Japan? And I know you have also, I've heard, of course, I've seen your profile, so I know what exactly. But then it'll be very nice if you could share your experience staying in Japan.
Wow. You asked me about something which is so close to my heart. Again, I can go on and on about Japan. It's like my second home, where you've given birth to your children. You can imagine that country is so close to my heart.
Right.
Excuse me. So if you really ask me, if I had to rate the best experience of my life, that would be Japan, definitely.
Right.
It's something like the moment I landed there, it was like, why I'm saying Japan, one of the best experiences, because हम लोग जब कहीं जाने की सोचते हैं लोग, घूमने के बारे में, education के बारे में, Japan is the last country which comes to their mind.
Right.
But of all the countries, God chose Japan for me. And when I landed there, I still remember the gratitude was overflowing that God, you chose Japan for me, which is 10 years ahead of all the countries,
right.
And I think that is one of the key points, Seema, here, which I like to say, which can make or break your experience of living in any country. How open you are. Are you embracing it? Or are you still in your cocoon? I think that was one of the key elements which played a huge factor in my life.
Yes.
Yeah. So we you kind of, our hearts were open, our souls were open, our minds were open to soak in. And same way, what you give is what you get. I got, love which is indescribable from Japanese people, the culture, the attitude. It's amazing. I can go on and go on again, like I said. But and obviously a lot of cross-cultural exchanges happened. We learned a lot from Japan, and and in exchange, whatever little bit I knew, I could share. We did. So a lot of things happened. We learned a lot. But if you ask me to take, there's one key takeaway, if I can take from my experience in Japan, would be the day tsunami hit Japan, and weeks following that. Even though it hit, we were 100 miles away down south of where it took place, the tremors of earthquake which we felt, shook us to the core. It made us realize that life is so fickle. It can just go on like
a pack of cards,
yeah. So, and after that, I don't need to tell you what happened. It was all over news. The airports flooded. Panicked foreigners. They're leaving back to their countries.
Right.
And a lot of things happened. But here I like to say one thing: why I'm sharing this experience, because I'm very proud of it. When I look back, is that we chose to stand the grounds. We chose to stay with our friends, Japanese friends who had become our extended family. We chose to stay with friends of the other community, who didn't have a place to go.
Right.
I was like, if this is not what you've learned from Japan, then what have you learned?
Exactly.
Expecting the unexpected. I think it's a thorough modern intellect. Absolutely. I think that is what it is. Yeah. So we stood with them. We grew through them. And I think that was a testing time, and I'm really proud of this thing. And that's it. And Seema, and that is in these times when awakening happens. You realize that what you have is now.
Right.
This is the moment. And all we have is now, and that's it. And so that kind of awakening, evolving,
yes,
and then you have to stand and face the fear. Not run away from it, basically.
Exactly.
So, and you can only know what lies ahead only once you do it.
And, yes, and that's also you become strong. That's
Yes.
the only way you become stronger also, you know.
That's the only way.
If you don't have these downfalls, you'll never realize in life. Because
Absolutely.
everything is smooth going, everything is in a comfort zone, you will never understand the pinch till you have a
Yes.
downfall, till you have
Yes.
something drastic, you know.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
right
Yes.
now, the pandemic. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
were like living life as if nothing could hit us. But now we
Yes.
realize what it is.
Yes.
Just a
Yes.
pandemic,
Yes.
how it has shaken every family, every household,
Yes. Yes.
this
Yes.
irrespective of any strata of the society.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's how life is, you know. We should not take things for granted, you know. That's what we humans
Absolutely.
do. Oh, it's
Absolutely.
fine. I mean, nothing can touch us, nothing can go wrong with us. But that's not
Yeah.
what life is. Life is
Yes.
always will give you surprises. That's
Absolutely,
even
Seema.
I've experienced, and I know how
Yes,
it
I
is.
know you've traveled
Yeah,
countries too, so
yeah.
it's
So
amazing.
I know how it is. But then
Yes.
what happens sometimes? For some people, probably it doesn't work. For some, it works. So of course, I
Yes.
mean,
Yes. Yes.
it's each opinions matters
So I remember
actually.
people started labeling me as Jhansi ki Rani बनने की जरूरत नहीं है. You
Uh,
should go back because the companies were actually pleading us to go back.
okay,
आप
yeah.
please चले जाओ किसी safer location में and please come
Hmm.
back after when once it settles down. ऐसे किस मुंह से
Hmm.
वापस आएंगे?
Hmm.
It's for me, it's all about integrity and your
Right.
words. किस मुंह से भाग गए थे और फिर I said life is not guaranteed. If you're running away
Hmm.
कि हम यहाँ पे safe नहीं है, there is no
Hmm.
guarantee.
No way
कि
you're safe.
आप
No
आप
way.
अभी next moment का नहीं पता आपको.
पता
So I
नहीं है.
think this is what I learned from Japan,
Right.
facing the fears and how to evolve, how to grow
Hmm.
through the situation.
Hmm.
And they're having that first-hand experience of
Hmm.
watching Japanese, facing this
Hmm.
calamity was
Oh my
itself
God,
a
they
reward.
are really incredible.
Yes,
I mean, I salute them, those guys. I mean,
really.
they keep having these earthquakes. They keep having so many big calamities, like natural
Yes,
disasters.
yes,
But the way they bounce back, that is
yes,
so remarkable. That's
yes.
so remarkable. I was watching some documentary, I think a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they were talking, I think maybe they perhaps the same tsunami. Some villages were completely washed off, but they
Mm-hmm.
have gone back. They showed the before and after. Now they've gone into the same place, the rubble, they've cleared it up, they've made it into a
Mm-hmm.
garden, a
Garden,
memory
yes,
kind of a
yes,
museum. Oh my God.
yeah.
Those guys are really out. They're really
Out of
like, they're.
Seema, if I talk about the attitude, I was zapped. अगले दिन मेरे घर में there was a cooking class happening.
Hmm.
अगले दिन की बात कर रही हूँ. Had it happened in India or somewhere, मैं तो sorry, it's not. I'm labeling countries.
Right,
The
right.
next day it was a class in some kind of cross cultural thing in my house,
Right,
and I
right,
thought
right.
cancel हो जाएगी या जो भी होगा. The class, all the Japanese came, ladies came, and अब मैं सोचूं अब बात करेंगे तब बात करेंगे कुछ तो बात करेंगे.
हाँ.
We just sailed through what जो भी हमें करना था सब कुछ अच्छी अच्छी बात नहीं सब कुछ. Last में बैठ के जब हम खा रहे थे finally I had the audacity to like I spoke in Japanese कि Kimura-san क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ पे भी expected था. We were living near the sea, कभी भी आ सकता है.
Right.
And I said Kimura-san यहाँ पे अगर आ गया तो हमने कहाँ जाना है? I was like asking her. She says, don't worry, I live on the top floor. If something happens, just come to my house. We'll be safe. That was the standard answer, Seema. I'm talking about, I was like, wow.
Look at the bravery on their face.
Literally.
The
bravery.
Yeah. I'm just what I'm saying. They're amazing, amazing. I mean, even amazing is a very modest word.
Yes, amazing is a very modest word.
It's out of the world. I mean, those kind of natural disasters, can you imagine? Can we fight back with the nature? But look at the way they bounce back. They face it, but they bounce back.
Absolutely, Seema. So ये earthquakes वगैरह जापान में earthquakes वगैरह तो आते ही रहते हैं आपको पता है. तो कैसे वो चीजें I think आपको बहुत awaken करती हैं सीमा कि आपको जब टेबल के नीचे होते हो ना आप तो आप सोचते हो कि अब यही सेकंड अब मैं क्या ले जाऊंगी ज्वेलरी ले जाऊंगी ये ले जाऊंगी. You don't think of those things or those moments. What do you think about
हथेली में रखे.
सीमा those are the times you think, those are the times when you get awakening क्योंकि आप डेथ को क्रॉस करके आ गए हो ना आपको लगता है गए और आए. Then you think, no, it's your memories what you leave behind. It's your legacy what you leave behind.
Exactly.
Then I think the detachment started happening for me at least, from that time on. What detachment with the worldly affairs, सब खत्म होता गया धीरे. I became more of a, yeah.
So, yeah, because then you realize, you saw the reality of life actually. No materialistic good, no amount of ego, no amount of money can get you those kind of...
True happiness meaning, came flashing. That was a light bulb, proverbial light bulb moment कहते हैं ना जो earthquake आता है वो था.
absolutely. Anyway, let's pray. Like, I mean, everybody should have a non-destructive life, but then again, nature you cannot predict anything.
Yes, nature. Yes, yes,
We are
yes,
all under the thumb of the nature. That's
yes.
about it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow, that's lovely. I mean, it's so inspiring to me. Even I felt for a moment I'm with you in Japan. Seriously,
Wow,
you took me
that's
over
so
there,
nice. Oh,
because I
really?
really I have seen those guys. I watched the documentary. I just love. And by the way, we had been to Japan a couple of years just for a holiday, just for a week,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
love those people's attitude. Their community is wonderful. I mean, one person will start something, everybody will join them. They're like all ants, sort of, they have like ant kind of a teamwork together.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
so nice. Literally uplifting each other, literally
Yes,
supporting each other.
yes,
Very nice.
yes,
That's one thing I
yes,
just loved about them.
yes,
That's
yes,
lovely.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So now that you have moved to so many places and different countries, so how did you adapt constantly changing circumstances and environments? Obviously, I mean, I understand because I've moved to so many places, so
Yeah.
I also know your language, what it is all
So
about.
at least I have somebody who's on the same page and will understand exactly
Yes,
what
yes,
I'm,
yes.
I have to say here is definitely if one thing really helped us and we've learned is, minimalist lifestyle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Not get emotionally attached to things, but get
Hmm.
attached to people, people,
Hmm.
experiences, life
Hmm.
as such, isn't it?
Hmm. Hmm.
And for example, if tomorrow somebody were to come and tell us,
Hmm.
okay, if you got to move to another country, you
Right.
know, we'll absolutely, be ready, pack few suitcases and off we go.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
is very important.
Hmm.
Even though we've been living in India for past 4 years,
Hmm.
we won't think twice. We'll be very happy because वो
Hmm.
attachment नहीं है ना चीजों से
Hmm.
कि हाय
Right.
मेरी कार और ये और मेरा ये और no 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 it's not
Hmm.
that भगवान कोई चीज आपके सामने रखता है आपको grow करने के लिए रखता है and we should I think embrace it with with a lot of gratitude and everything isn't
Right.
it I think
Right.
that is
Right.
one thing
Hmm.
and also I think Seema in this volatile and uncertain world I think agility is one thing is the key
Hmm. Right.
the sooner we adopt new
Hmm.
cultures environment
Hmm.
the better we'll be I think
Yes.
you'll agree with me on this point
Yes. Totally.
and
Totally. 100%.
yeah and these days we mostly people are becoming global citizens we're no longer
Hmm.
attached to a single country
Absolutely.
so I think it's about to have more cultural sensitivity and
Hmm.
not just your own cocoon your comfort
Yes.
zone
Just yeah, stick to
so
your roots only.
yes
Yes.
it is very
Absolutely.
important to
Very
do that
important.
so I
Yes.
think for us it is all about moving out of moving out of
Comfort
comfort zone
zone.
and stepping out yeah
Stepping out. Yeah.
so
Yeah. That's
agility and all these things that's it yeah
yeah. I mean, the new norm should be like your adaptation should be a survival kit now. You should be able to
yes
survive in given any part of the world. You should have
survival of the
that skill.
fittest
Yeah. Yes. Because that skill is so important now. It's a
yes
new norm. Like a new norm is wearing a mask. This is a new norm now.
yes
Because
yes
situations can change at any given point of time. Now मौसम भी वैसे हो गया. 10 मिनट
hmm.
में बारिश तो 2 मिनट में धूप छाँव जल्द
Dhub.
आ जाती है. आपको
Hmm.
गैप ही नहीं मिलता. तो
Yes,
आपको वो
absolutely.
सर्वाइवल किट तो कुछ और फर्स्ट एड किट नहीं होना चाहिए, सर्वाइवल किट होना चाहिए अभी. वो भी
Yes,
नॉर्म
yes,
चेंज हो गया. So
absolutely.
that's a new norm. That's why I tell my
Yes,
kids
yes.
also, you have
And we
to,
have to evolve out of it,
yeah, you have
learn
to
out of
evolve.
it, grow out of
Yes,
it. Any
yes,
situation, I think.
yes,
अभी
yes,
हमारे यहाँ पे भी जो
absolutely.
situation है इंडिया में all
Hmm.
worldwide, people
Hmm.
have started talking about Afghanistan. Let's not,
Hmm.
go into a different topic. But I
Yes.
say कि जो situation आपके पास है, पहले आप उसमें से evolve हो जाओ,
Right.
and and
Rather than
that's
just
yeah,
digging into other areas, first fix up for your own area
yes,
first
yes,
before you
yeah,
dig into other areas.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
That's it.
Oh, that's very, very wonderful. So, what message would you like to share with our viewers, like through all your experiences of life, especially to women? Women, we know how life is different for a woman than for a man. Mostly, and especially given our society, how Indian society is, right? So, what message would you like to give through your experiences, right from childhood
Uh,
till now, whatever you feel, which can help with your message.
Well, I think it's very humbling to be even, answering this question. So thank you very much.
No, of course,
And
it's wonderful. It'll
I
be a
think,
pleasure.
Seema, obviously, I walk the talk, you know. आपकी जो लाइफ है, ये बड़े लोग बोलते हैं कि वो मैसेज होनी चाहिए, but you know, it is something like that. It's like, all I can say is that always live your life as if you are a role model. You know, starting from your children, you know, your better halves, your friends, your family, your society. You know, this way, not I think, I'm sure we live consciously. You know, we look always, you know, we are conscious that somebody is watching, we evolve, we're learning, we're evolving, and we are living a life full of integrity and principles. You know, I think this is very important, and I think this is one thing everybody should be striving for. And definitely, you know, we can go on and on, you know, कि हर चीज अपने टाइम पे यूनिवर्स या भगवान आपको देता है. There's a window of opportunity which comes in your life. आप उसको, you know, grace के साथ accept करो, and you know, move forward with it. You know, listen to your intuition. That is very important. And age is not, you know, we were just talking like, you know, age is just a number. You know, it's just a number. आप अगर मैं I meet a 20-year-old, 25-year-old these days, and this is अभी उम्र हो गई है, and I look at them and I'm like, no, it's like मैं यहाँ से सुन के यहाँ से निकाल देती हूँ, and I'm like, and when they hear my age, like, what do you do? I said, I just do this thing, what you're saying. I don't do that thing. I've never said in my life कि उम्र हो गई है, and I don't. अगर भगवान ने बहुत लंबी उम्र दी, आप मुझे 80-90 साल तक भी नहीं सुनोगे ये बोलते हुए कि उम्र हो गई है, because this is, you know, your body is how you think, like you also say that. So I think that is very important. You know, there's a lot of things basically, and I think everybody should be striving for. But एक मैं छोटा सा एक second चीज है attitude. Attitude में बहुत सारी चीजें cover हो जाती हैं, सारी चीजें cover हो जाती हैं. You know, the grass is always greener on the other side. But the thing is, you know, grass is only greener जहाँ पर उसको पानी देते हो. तो बहुत time, you know, लोग, मैं जब इंडिया आई थी, it's been 4 years, you know, people would look at me, she's always smiling, you enter her house, the aura is amazing, we don't know how to feel it, and it happens everywhere I'm living, be it India, be it England, मैं UK में रही हूँ, मैं England में रही हूँ, you know, कि आप, and then they, at the end of the day, they ask me, आप खुश कैसे रहती हैं? Now this question coming at me, I'm like, क्योंकि जगह आपसे बनती है, आप जगह से नहीं बनती.
राइट, एब्सोल्युटली.
यू नो, अगर आप दुखी हो तो आप चाहे इंग्लैंड चले जाओ, आपने देखी है सीमा लोग ऐसे जो वहां पे भी दुखी रहते हैं. You know, when they're in England or Japan, they're always talking about India. हमारा इंडिया ऐसे. And you know, at times I've walked up to them and said, आप इंडिया क्यों नहीं चले जाते वापस? You know, really, I've walked up to them, जब बहुत ज्यादा हो जाता है, you know, कि आप इंडिया क्यों नहीं चले जाते अगर if you're missing India so much.
Right.
So I think it's the place, आप जगह आपसे बनती है, आप जगह से नहीं बनते, and it's all depends on your attitude. But मैं एक छोटी सी स्टोरी के साथ यहाँ पे ये एंड करूंगी, जो मैंने एक बहुत बड़े कन्वेंशन में सुनी थी आज से 20 साल पहले, you know, by this greatest speaker on this planet, and it made a huge impact on my mind कि हाँ, and उस कन्वेंशन का नाम ही था Attitude is Everything. So the story goes like this, you know, और ये बहुत आपने भी सुनी होगी, बुक्स में भी है बहुत. So the story goes like this कि there's this gentleman जो एक जगह से दूसरी जगह पे शिफ्ट हो रहे होते हैं, from one town to another town.
Right.
तब वो जब जा रहे होते हैं तो बीच में एक पेट्रोल पंप आता है. उस पेट्रोल पंप पे वो रुकते हैं गैसोलीन भरवाने के लिए. तो उस पेट्रोल पंप भाई साहब से पूछते हैं कि you know, I'm going to this town, how are the people there, what kind of, you know, atmosphere is there. So the petrol pump guy asked him one question. एक ही क्वेश्चन वो पूछता है कि आप जिस जगह से आ रहे हैं वो जगह कैसी थी. So the guy says, oh my god, pathetic, don't even ask, don't even start, pathetic people, horrible atmosphere, they have no manners, you know, मैं तो बस सोच रहा था कब मैं वहां से निकलूं, you know. So he has that kind of attitude. So petrol pump guy says, आप जिस जगह पे जा रहे हैं वहां के लोग भी एकदम वैसे ही हैं. So now the second part, एक और gentleman एक टाउन से दूसरे टाउन उसी टाउन जा रहे होते हैं. So he asked the same question from that petrol pump guy. He says, I'm going to this town, how are the people and everything there? So he asked the same question back, कि आप जहाँ से आ रहे हैं, how are the people, atmosphere and things there? He says, the people were fantastic, atmospheres were amazing, you know, I'm going to miss them and they're going to miss me. He says, जिस जगह आप जा रहे हैं वो जगह भी बिल्कुल वैसी है और लोग
वही है,
भी बिल्कुल वैसे हैं.
वैसे ही
So
है.
so it's all about attitude in life. It's up, we have to keep, there's no other way to it. And happiness is an inside job most of the
Right.
time, not most, all the time we are running outside ki happiness milegi. Nahi, it's a basic right, all human right. We are happy and peaceful, It's in our mind ki hame happiness dhoondni hai. So without any much further ado, I think happiness is an inside job. We have to travel inside and find happiness and not depend upon outside circumstances ki ye hoga to main khush hongi ya ye mujhe milega to main khush hongi. Once I think that thing comes, I think once we understand this fact, that is it, we got it.
Yeah. Wow, that's very wonderful. Yeah, and it's so true. It's very, very true what you're saying, because see, humans are, of course, emotions keep fluctuating. It's very easy to get into negative mode than getting into positive mode. And with the social media, with the kind of glamorous life we are seeing, see about a year era, the earlier eras, life was not that glamorous. Now with the social media, things are so glamorous. Most of them, of course, are fake. We don't know what's going on in people's life. They
Yeah.
just put up these pictures and huge stories on Insta and blah blah blah. So there are some weak minds. They just hook onto it, and then they again get into the depression and things like that. And again,
Yes.
so these also play a very, very big role, and not only amongst our adults, even I've seen in youngsters, kids these days. You see the teenagers. You see, when we were teenagers, we were so different then, and look at the teenagers now. Look at
Yeah.
the stress levels they have. Look at how conscious they are.
Yeah.
Just to bring that spotlight on them, and literally
Yes.
pushing that edge, pushing that boundary.
Yes.
So
Yes.
social media also really plays a very, very big role.
Absolutely.
And social media also has a good aspect also, but
True.
picking up good aspect is so much difficult than picking up the bad aspect. That's my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Those,
So it's
with
so it has a very, very bad effect. But then yeah, I mean, we do need people like people
it
to help
is.
you out, and of course the best help is you have to help yourself.
Yes.
I will not disagree. There are times even I also feel very low. I also get
Yes.
depressed. But then
Yes.
there are like my husband sometimes helps me out. Sometimes I have to pull
Yes.
up myself. So we
Yeah.
have to constantly play a war. In our mind.
Absolutely.
Why just like have a shortfall? Why don't
Yeah.
we keep our guards up? Keep the
Yeah.
positive energy high up. So we have
Yeah.
to keep working on it. So I
Yeah.
think that's the only solution. No matter
Yes.
you go to any kind of art of living or whatever,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
ultimately you are answerable to yourself.
You're answerable to yourself. And with that, if you permit, I'll just take 2-3 minutes more. One more
Yeah,
thing
sure,
came to my
sure.
mind while you were
Yeah,
talking.
right.
Social media ka jo aap bata rahe the. In fact, I was away from social media for 4 years. I have recently launched myself just 4-5 months back.
Okay.
And hey, I meet you and lovely people. I was away for 4 years because the why I came back to India is also a big story. There was a reason of immediately, why we chose within a split of seconds we were back, leaving everything behind.
Right.
So that's another part of the story why we chose to come back. So I was away for 4 years because I knew that something else needed my attention and I was not able to, hook off from the. So sometimes you have to take those steps that no.
Right.
And how I try to make a balance. I think जो message आप पूछ रहे थे मेरे से एक और चीज मैं बताना चाहूंगी कि एक बैलेंस होना लाइफ में. Like since you were talking about social media, एक बैलेंस होना लाइफ में बहुत जरूरी है. Now we cannot say कि हम लोग सोशल मीडिया मत करो, किसी को मतलब मना नहीं कर सकते. But I think एक बैलेंस होना बहुत जरूरी है. So I believe in this, like a 6 spokes of wheel. मेरे एफर्मेशन कार्ड्स में जब मैं सुबह उठती हूँ वो हमेशा रहता है और मैं उसको हमेशा दिन में 3 बार देखती हूँ कि am I following this balance in my life? I think that is a secret of me being always happy कि am I following this balance of life? तो वो सीमा ऐसा होता है कि जो साइकिल का पहिया होता है जैसे 6 spokes होते हैं तो उसमें से वो 6 spokes हमारी लाइफ में भी होते हैं. One is the family, एक हमारा करियर जहाँ से पैसे आते हैं, एक स्पिरिचुअल, It could be anything. आप यूनिवर्स में बिलीव कर, something gratitude. You're always
Hmm.
always grateful. जो आपके
Right.
पास चीजें हैं, हमेशा भगवान से मांगना नहीं हमें को ये चाहिए. Always for the things.
Saying that we should
इतना
feel
कुछ
gratitude,
है,
feel blessed.
इतना
We always feel blessed.
ये लाइफ है, सांस चल रही है, इतना कुछ. You know, we लिखने बैठो तो मैंने एक दिन 100 चीजें लिख दी. Little things, you know, that and I felt super blessed, you know, और ज्यादा great, you know, gratitude आता है. Spiritual और six spokes का मैं बता रही थी आपको, like family है, आपका career है, आपका, you know, spiritually थोड़ा सा आपको अपने आप को gratitude बहुत जरूरी है. And then, you know, mental, कि what kind of stuff you're feeding your mind is very important. So I think controlled information here is very important, you know. Now it'll be surprise. Now again, it can be a separate discussion altogether. I don't watch TV at all. I know it's important for some to watch, but you know, कुछ ऐसे टीवी नहीं चलता रहता या कुछ भी. So I think controlled information is very important. अच्छी books पढ़ना. हम लोग डिप्रेशन में आते हैं. Everybody goes through that phase, you know. मैं भी, with me it's like if I don't read a book, अगर मैं 10 मिनट बुक ना पढूं रोज, I start going into a, लोग मुझे बोलते हैं, कई बार बहुत बार बोलते थे, because I've been a speaker, you know. We talk about good books and all. It says ये सब मोटिवेशन से कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता, you know. ये बस आती हैं और चली जाती हैं. And my question to them is, आप खाना खाते हैं? हाँ खाते हैं. तो वो भी तभी तक काम करता है जब तक आप खाते हैं. You know, it's not about that. It's about a mind. Mind also needs fueling. So what kind of fuel we are giving it? Now, the minute you take out a page from a book, it says, you know, you're amazing, you can do it, and this is what it is. Nobody's going to come and tell us that. So we need
those kind
it's
of
imperative.
boosting
It's
words,
imperative to listen to such people. And, you know, I think ये balance होना, family, you know, quality time देना, सब कुछ. एक चीज के पीछे हम नहीं, और एक स्पोक भी अगर वो मिस हो जाए, तो, you know, लड़खड़ाने लग जाती है life. So it's not that either we are running after money or we are running after fame too much कि बच्चों को हम बाद में देख लेंगे. नहीं, kids start growing up. So that balance every day of our life.
Yes, to balance it, absolutely.
Living in the moment, I think, is the key. Living in the zone. आगे क्या होना है, पीछे क्या हुआ. Just live in the moment. You don't know what is going to happen ahead. Past, forget about it. Just leave that mountain of, you know, thoughts and everything, you know. So I think starting from the zero, you know, level zero, zone में होना बहुत जरूरी है to make the best out of your life. So that is very important.
Yeah. Very, very rightly said. My God, it's so inspiring. It was such a wonderful, it was so interesting, like literally talking to, I mean, Anita, I mean, I couldn't have asked for more. It was such a pleasure to have you on board. I mean, I'm literally like, you know, I've shifted, like I've been, you know, like kind of been swiped away with my thoughts, you know, the way you have, it's so powerful, you know, you're giving me these positive vibes through the screen, actually, you know, and it's really hitting me hard, seriously.
Come have tea with me then.
Yeah, sure, of course, why not? Wow, so wonderful. Right, so this is it, my viewers. What a lovely lady, what a lovely insight. What more you can ask for? See, that's why we say women are so strong. If we want to do, we can do so many things. If we want to change our mind, change our mindset, feel negative, we can do that. If you want to feel positive, we can do that. We have that power. God has actually given this power to women, you know, because simply because we have that the motherly instinct, you know, that's just so important. So we have these extra powerful emotions, you know, attached to us, which is that's how we can reproduce and have kids, have a family. If we didn't have these elements, I don't think we could have done wonders. I can tell you one thing. So that's why I say women are absolutely strong. But sometimes so happen with situations, with the platforms or whatever scenarios they face, some people are unable to, you know, bring the best version out of themselves. But nevertheless, there is no harm. There are so many people out there to help you out, you know, to pull up your socks, and you know, if you want, that is, of course, again, attitude comes also plays a very, very big role. So thank you so much, Miss Anita. It was so wonderful to have you on board, and it was lovely talking to you, lovely listening to your experiences. What a great insight. I mean, really, I mean, it's so nice, and I'm really losing my words, you know, even to appreciate.
Pleasure was all mine, Seema. Just looking at you made me so, you know, unwind. So thank you for smiling all the time. I was very nervous, you know, when I came here. You know it, so you know, I've thought about things, but
not at all. I mean, it was
Thank you so
Definitely, it
much.
was such a wonderful like chat show today I had with you, and thank you so much, and all the very best for your future endeavors and
Thank
your
you.
being a speaker, and keep spreading your inspirations, your happiness, your positivity. There's a little way we can do it in a
Yes,
society, in a community. Rather than just thinking about the results, just do a bit. That's
absolutely.
about it.
Yes,
There's somebody watching,
absolutely.
they only, even he or she will give the result. That's about it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely,
so
Seema.
yeah, yeah, so great, thank you so much once
Thank
again,
you so
and
thank you. Thank you
all the
too.
best.
And bye-bye to
Yeah,
everyone and
bye
to you.
bye,
Thank you
yeah,
so
thank
much.
you, bye bye.
Thank
So
you.
viewers, you have heard what a fantastic lady, and I was, her insights were wonderful. So I enjoyed hosting the show for all of you, and I'm sure you also have enjoyed watching the show, listening to the fantastic stories from our lovely, lovely guest today. So please, please like, share, comment on my Fashion Nova page. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay cheerful, get yourself vaccinated, maintain social distancing. We are all into this pandemic together. I'm sure we are very much coming out of it with under the vaccination mode, but then there are a lot of people who are still not agreeing to get them vaccinated. The faster we do, the better we get back a normal life, and let's all rock together. And thank you for tuning in, all people, my lovely, lovely viewers. And very soon I'll be getting another inspiring story with another wonderful guest. So till then, stay happy, stay cheerful. See you very soon. Cheers for now. Bye. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.